Quick disclaimer, this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing here should be considered financial advice. Always do your own research and understand the risks before investing.
Welcome back everyone to another Bitcoin video. So here we are on the 4-hour chart. If you haven't seen some of our scenarios that we have for Bitcoin for those analysis videos, make sure to check those out as well, where we kind of go through different scenarios of how our possible mapping of a play could play out for Bitcoin and some of our levels and indicators of what scenario could be more in favor of playing out. In today's video, we're just going to be going more on the analysis part and some of the levels, liquidity, and long and short leverage as well. So getting started, we have been going, like we said, within the sideways for the last couple of weeks, so not too much has changed over there. If we go to the shorter time frame, we have seen a bit of a bounce these last few hours, which is very nice to see for Bitcoin. However, we still have yet to break above this high here at 74,000, where we saw a rejection within that range. And like we were talking about with the low of resistance within here, we saw that rejection there as well. So not super surprising to see that as well. We said within our last video, it wouldn't be surprising to see Bitcoin have a move towards liquidity, and that kind of seems like that is exactly what is happening right now. Like we were saying, that 70,000 to 75,000 range has a lot of shorts, which is where Bitcoin could definitely be heading next to liquidate some shorts before we could possibly see another fall and then a possible another rally towards the 80s as well, assuming that white A wave were to play out like we said for some of our past scenarios. Now, because we haven't broke above this line up here at 74,000, this could still just be a 1-2 setup to the downside, where we could get a third, fourth, and a fifth, test the lower boundary range at the 65,000, which has a lot of liquidity as well for longs down there, which we'll see later in the video, where we could possibly bounce up and start to form a structure towards the mid to high 70s and 80s as well. Now, our indicators of what we want to look out for these next couple of hours and just coming up for this trading week is one, we got to look out for these trend lines that we have been trading in. First, at the higher level at 75,000 and this lower one at 65,000. If we see some sort of rejection within this range here or at this trend line, or maybe we break a little above it and we get a rejection, well then it could be a good indicator that we are either going to be testing this lower boundary range at 65,000, or we could just be forming a higher low to liquidate that 67 to 71,000 range, which is where longs have been starting to build up again, and which we could rally up from there as well. But we would just kind of have to wait and see what we will see and how price action forms from there. If we do see a sustained break and we see consolidation and then a bounce off from it, well then that would be a very good sign for Bitcoin for a possible rally towards the mid to high 70s and even within this 80,000 range as well. That wouldn't be too surprising to see if that were to play out. Now, our first indication that we are heading for this lower boundary line is obviously a break below this level, which is at 70,000, which would be our first indication. Our second indication would be a break below this level at 69,000. Once we get a break below both of these levels, well then that could be a good indicator that we are either retesting a liquidity zone between 67,000 to 69,000, or we could be testing this lower boundary line. So that is kind of what we would be looking for within our next few ranges. So right now we still are within the middle of this top and these two bottoms right here, and Bitcoin is still within the middle. So if we see a break firstly above this high here at 74,000, well that's our first indicator that we could be testing this trend line. If we see consolidation here and we bounce off from it, well then that is a very good sign that we will be heading higher for Bitcoin. If we start to see some weakness or maybe a another higher high, but we get a rejection from this trend line and we fall below some of our swing lows, well, then that is our first indicator that we could be coming back to test this zone down here as well. Now that's it for the analysis part. If we go over to the RSI, which is something I do like to talk over with for some of the people and for some of the videos as well, just because we have had a few callouts with larger degree RSI of bearish divergences and bullish divergences that do end up playing very well for Bitcoin, but obviously none of it is ever guaranteed. On the 1 hour, we hit oversold and we are slightly bouncing away from it, and we haven't formed any real divergences yet, other than a very possible small one. If we do go a little bit higher here and we get a higher high over here, we could possibly form a divergence on the 1 hour chart for the bearish divergence, and that could also be leading up to this one over here. But usually my indicators, once we kind of hit oversold or overbought, it kind of resets the indicator for either one. So although we could have a rally and a higher high than both of these ranges over here because we oversold over here, that's just an indicator to me that that just kind of resets the RSI, and now this next move is what's really in play compared to this one over here. On the 4 hour RSI, we did manage to actually break above these levels when we were towards the 73,000 range. Obviously, because we sold off a little bit, we have fell below it as well. But if we were to close a 4 hour candle here, we would have a very slight bearish divergence as well, with this high here, a lower high on the RSI, a slightly same RSI we got here, and then a lower RSI over here, but a higher price locked, or the higher price candle close for the 4 hour as well. On the daily, we are still resetting that daily RSI. We've been tracking this same daily trend line that we've been getting rejected on from the RSI, which is exactly what we called out over here as well back in January, where we did see that rejection and a sell-off for Bitcoin as well. So if that were to play out again, we could expect to see a rejection around the 65 to 70 range on the daily RSI, assuming that indicator were to play out as well. And that actually would align pretty well with Bitcoin getting within the high 70s to low to mid 80s as well before we could see a sell-off of some sort, assuming that trend line were to play out. Now, if we go to the long and short liquidation levels, is on the 30-day, we do see a much more long leverage compared to short leverage. However, because the trend is a little bit more up right now, it does leave this in play of this range between 73,000 to the 76,000 range that could possibly be getting liquidated, like we were saying in some of our last videos. However, the longs are starting to build up as well. Like we said, that range from 67, if we go back here, 67,000 to about 70,000 has this large cluster right here, and then a smaller cluster back here at the 63 to 66 range, 66,000 range as well. On the daily, we could see this play out in the next trading week as well, is our levels, like we were just saying, that 73 to 76,000 range is in play for shorts, but as you can see, liquidation for the longs are starting to pile up a lot. So if we do see a rejection at that trend line, that would make sense for this liquidity to be taken out as well between that 67 to 70,000 range of this larger degree back here. Now, if we also go to the heat map for our 2 week for Bitcoin, it's the same story that we see over here. That range of the mid 70s to about 76,000 has this cluster up here. It seems like Bitcoin is currently working its way up here. So if we do reach this zone, that would obviously be built up for a lot more longs down here as well on the 2 week. And we could possibly see a rejection and a sweep of these liquidity zones between the 65,000 and this, like we were saying, 67 to 70,000 range if that were to play out. However, if we do see a 5-wave move up, Like you haven't seen any of our scenarios for Bitcoin. A 5-wave move up just basically means that the trend for Bitcoin is up, or in that moment, it's a good sign that a trend indicator could be up, that the market is convinced of the price going higher. So far, this is overall just a 1, 2, 3 wave move up, and even this move right here is still a 1, 2, 3 move up. So as of right now, this is just more impulsive price action of just volatility, and it doesn't really sustain of a real trend other than just a possible liquidity sweep. If we see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave move up and a 3 wave move down, well, that is a very good indicator that that indeed could be our white scenario, where all of this could have just been a 1, 2, 3 wave move up, then we could get a 4th wave corrective move, a 5th wave up, and then we could see a larger B wave corrective move down, in which we could start that final C wave rally up to that range that we were talking about of that larger resistance zone. So in terms of what we will see over the possible trading week is, as of right now, it seems a lot more likely for Bitcoin. Obviously, it's not guaranteed, but just the way the price is moving, and this could just be a 3-wave move up. So far, we haven't seen a 5-wave move up and a 3-wave move down. This could just be a 3-wave move up, just volatile event to liquidate this 75,000 range, in which we could see a correction of some sort back down to that 60,000 range, which actually, in fact, would indeed form a 1-2 setup, in which we could bounce off from it as well. We also had another trend line that has been playing out for Bitcoin as well. If we just quickly add it right here, if I can get that to look pretty good. And within this zone as well, would actually make sense to see that 67 to 68,000 range be hit as well to form a 1-2 setup, in which we could get a 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. So yeah, that's pretty much everything for this video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.